My brother tried to take over my company. He forgot I own 70% of it. Emily Chen sat in the corner of her home office, staring at the framed photo on her desk. In the picture, her brother Marcus and his wife Sarah beamed with joy outside the hospital where Emily had saved Sarah's life. It was supposed to symbolize love, sacrifice, and family loyalty. Now it felt like a bitter mockery. She traced her finger along the edge of the frame as her thoughts wandered back to where it all began, 10 years ago in the cramped space of her garage. Back then, Meditech Solutions was just an idea. Emily had been working long hours as a software engineer, driven by a passion for using technology to solve inefficiencies in healthcare. Patients shouldn't have to wait weeks for answers, she often said, frustrated with the slow pace of hospital operations. She dreamed of building software that could revolutionize patient care. With her savings, she bought her first server and started coding. Her days were spent visiting clinics, understanding workflows, and translating those processes into algorithms. By night, she worked tirelessly, fueled by takeout and determination. 5 years later, Meditech Solutions had grown into a $100 million company, its software now used by hospitals nationwide. Emily loved her work, but her greatest source of pride wasn't just her business success. It was her unwavering belief in family. She and Marcus had grown up in a modest household, their parents instilling in them the values of loyalty and support. So when Marcus came to her 5 years ago, desperation in his eyes, Emily didn't hesitate. It's Sarah," Marcus had said, his voice cracking. "Her kidneys are failing. She needs a transplant or she won't make it." Emily's chest tightened as she listened. Sarah, her sister-in-law, had always been kind and warm, a perfect match for Marcus's more boisterous personality. Without a second thought, Emily got tested. When the results came back as a match, she felt it was fate. "Are you sure, Emily?" her mother asked, her voice trembling as they sat in the hospital's waiting room. "Yes, Mom," Emily said firmly. "This is what family does." The surgery was harder than she expected. Recovery stretched on for months, and managing Meditech during that time was a Herculean effort. From her hospital bed, she conducted meetings over video calls, reviewed quarterly reports, and ensured that Meditech continued to thrive. Marcus visited often, bringing flowers and heartfelt words of gratitude. "You've saved our family," he would say, his eyes filled with emotion. Sarah, too, was deeply appreciative, offering to help in any way she could. It was Emily's idea to bring Sarah into the company, assigning her a role in the HR department to help her regain purpose after her recovery. "We're family," Emily reminded her. "You're part of this too." For a while, life seemed perfect. Meditech's innovative software gained traction, drawing the attention of major hospitals and investors. Marcus started showing an interest in the business, offering to help with operations and finances. Emily, still recovering, welcomed his involvement. He had an MBA from Harvard and a sharp mind for corporate strategy. "Let me take some of the load off," Marcus insisted during one of their meetings. "You need to focus on your health." At first, his support seemed genuine. He attended board meetings, networked with investors, and represented Meditech at industry events. Emily was grateful, until subtle changes began to creep in. Meetings were rescheduled to times when Emily was at medical checkups. Important decisions were made during casual gatherings that she couldn't attend due to her post-donation dietary restrictions. Marcus's name started appearing in press articles as the company's visionary leader. Emily dismissed her growing unease, chalking it up to her recovery fogging her judgment. But the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room, the fleeting glances from her staff, and Sarah's sudden avoidance of eye contact painted a troubling picture. The breaking point came at Meditech's 10th anniversary celebration, held at a lavish hotel Marcus had insisted on. "We need to show our strength," he had said. Emily prepared a heartfelt speech, eager to share her vision for the company's future. But as Marcus took the stage, her excitement turned to confusion. "10 years ago, my sister started this company with a dream," Marcus began, his voice booming across the ballroom. "Today, Meditech stands as a testament to innovation in healthcare technology." Emily smiled, waiting for him to introduce her, but instead his tone shifted. "However, times change, and so must leadership," he continued, his words slicing through the air. "Since my sister's kidney donation, her health has become increasingly fragile, impacting the company's operations. It's time for Meditech to enter a new era of leadership, one that isn't compromised by health issues or outdated management styles. Emily felt her heart stop as Marcus turned to her, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Emily, you've done so much, but now it's time to step down." The ballroom erupted into murmurs. Emily sat frozen, her mind racing to process what had just happened. It wasn't just Marcus's words that stung. It was the nodding heads of the board members she had trusted, people she had personally mentored. Each nod felt like a dagger to the back. Marcus smiled confidently as he continued his speech, ignoring the storm brewing behind Emily's calm exterior. Sarah sat beside him, head bowed, silent and complicit. She didn't meet Emily's eyes, not even once. Emily's fingers gripped the edge of the table. She wanted to shout, to tell everyone the truth about how she had built this company from nothing, how she had sacrificed her health and sanity to keep it thriving. But she knew better. Public outbursts wouldn't serve her. Meditech's investors and industry leaders weren't interested in emotional drama. They valued composure, strength, and strategy. As Marcus concluded his speech to applause, Emily rose slowly from her chair. The whispers around her grew louder. Everyone expected her to break down, perhaps even storm out. Instead, she walked toward the podium, carrying the speech she had prepared. Reaching the microphone, she placed her speech on the stand, took a deep breath, and said in a steady voice, "Congratulations, Marcus. I hope you know what you're doing." The room fell silent. All eyes were on her as she turned and walked away, head held high. She didn't look back. The ride home was a blur. Emily's thoughts spun in circles as she gripped the steering wheel. Betrayal didn't begin to cover what had just happened. She had given Marcus everything, a place in her company, trust, even a second chance at life for his wife. And now he had tried to take everything from her. But Marcus had made a crucial mistake. He underestimated her. As she pulled into her driveway, she finally let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hand brushed against her side, where the faint scar from the kidney donation lay hidden beneath her blouse. It was a reminder of both her sacrifice and her strength. She didn't need a public scene to fight back. No, her revenge would be quiet, calculated, and thorough. The moment she entered her home office, she powered up her laptop and began typing. Her mind worked faster than her fingers could keep up, formulating a plan that would turn Marcus's coup into the biggest mistake of his life. By dawn, everything would be ready. The next morning, Emily arrived at Meditech headquarters at 6 a.m., well before anyone else. She walked through the quiet halls, her heels echoing on the polished floors. Security cameras tracked her movement. She had personally overseen their installation years ago. She entered the main conference room and set up her tablet, preparing for what was to come. At precisely 9 a.m., Marcus strode through the front doors, Sarah trailing behind him. They wore matching expressions of triumph, unaware that their victory was about to crumble. "Emily," Marcus said, feigning surprise, "I didn't expect to see you here. I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home and rest." Emily smiled faintly. "Oh, I'm feeling quite strong today. In fact, I think it's time we discuss the company's future." She motioned for them to enter the conference room. "There's nothing to discuss," Marcus said sharply, pulling out his phone. "I'll call security." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Emily interrupted, pulling out her tablet and projecting a document onto the large screen behind her. "Tell me, Marcus, did you actually read the company's founding documents, or were you too busy practicing your speech?" Marcus hesitated, confusion flickering across his face. "What are you talking about?" Emily pointed to the screen. "When I founded Meditech, I created a dual-class share system. The publicly traded shares that you and the board have been so focused on. They're Class B shares, voting rights, yes, but limited control." She paused, watching Marcus's confidence begin to waver. The Class A shares, however, hold supermajority voting power, and they're held by a private trust. My trust, one that explicitly states that medical conditions cannot be used as grounds for leadership removal. Marcus's face turned pale. "That's impossible. The board can vote however they want," Emily said coolly, cutting him off. "But it doesn't change the fact that I control 70% of the company's voting power." The room was silent except for the sound of Sarah's chair scraping as she gripped its back, her face as pale as Marcus's. But that's just the beginning, Emily continued, her tone sharp. Remember that healthcare management software you've been bragging about in interviews, the one that generates 80% of our revenue? It isn't owned by Meditech. It's licensed through my personal holding company, MTech Innovations. Marcus looked stunned. You can't do this. I already have. Emily tapped her tablet again, displaying a series of emails. Last night, I sent notices to all our major clients. Their contracts include a key person clause, me. If I'm forcibly removed from leadership, they have the right to terminate their contracts without penalty. Would you like to know how many have already indicated they'll exercise that right? Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He frantically scrolled through his phone, likely checking the company's stock price. Emily could already imagine what he was seeing, a sharp decline as news of the internal chaos spread. You have two options, she said, her voice calm but commanding. Option 1, I walk away with my intellectual property, key employees, and major clients. Meditech becomes an empty shell, and you explain to the board and shareholders why the company's value dropped to zero overnight. Or option 2. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking on his. You and Sarah resign immediately, surrender your shares at current market value, which by the way is dropping by the minute, and sign ironclad non-compete agreements. In return, I won't pursue legal action for corporate espionage and attempted hostile takeover. Marcus's lips trembled as he whispered, You wouldn't dare, we're family. Emily laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. Funny how family only matters when you need something. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, I start making phone calls to the SEC about some interesting financial movements in the company accounts since you started attending board meetings. The next hour passed in tense silence. Lawyers filed in and out of the conference room, papers shuffled, and hushed conversations buzzed like an undercurrent of controlled chaos. Marcus and Sarah sat at the far end of the room, their heads bowed in whispered discussion with their legal counsel. The confidence they had walked in with was gone, replaced by the unmistakable signs of defeat. Emily remained calm, reviewing documents with her own legal team, but her mind was razor-focused. Every move she made was calculated, precise. This wasn't just about saving her company. It was about making sure Marcus and Sarah could never try something like this again. At exactly 10:57 a.m., Marcus finally broke the silence. Fine, he muttered through clenched teeth. We'll resign. Emily leaned back in her chair, a faint smile playing on her lips. Good choice. She handed a pen to the lawyer beside her, who slid the resignation papers across the table toward Marcus and Sarah. One by one they signed. The room remained tense, the only sounds being the scratch of pens on paper and the steady clicking of Emily's assistant's keyboard. When it was done, Marcus looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and regret. You've made your point, Emily, but this isn't over. Oh, it's very much over, Emily said quietly, meeting his gaze. You tried to take everything from me. I've only ensured that you can never do it again. She stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. You have until the end of the day to clear out your belongings. My security team will escort you out when you're done. Marcus opened his mouth as if to protest, but Sarah placed a hand on his arm, shaking her head. Without another word, they stood and left the room. By noon, news of Marcus and Sarah's resignation had spread throughout Meditech. Employees whispered in hallways, glancing nervously at Emily whenever she passed by. Some were curious, others were relieved, but most felt a newfound respect for their CEO. A woman who had not only built the company from the ground up, but had also defended it with unyielding resolve. Emily wasted no time. She called an all-hands meeting, standing at the front of the packed conference hall. Hundreds of eyes were on her, waiting to hear what she had to say. Good afternoon, she began, her voice clear and steady. I know many of you have heard about the changes in leadership. I won't dwell on the details, but I will say this. Meditech has always been more than just a company, it's a family. And like any family, we've faced challenges and betrayals, but we've come out stronger. She paused, scanning the room, making eye contact with as many employees as possible. I built this company with a vision to revolutionize healthcare technology, and that vision hasn't changed. We have an incredible team, world-class products, and most importantly, we have each other. Together, we will continue to grow, innovate, and lead the industry. The room erupted into applause. Emily felt a swell of pride and gratitude. These people weren't just employees, they were the backbone of Meditech, the reason it had become what it was today. As the applause died down, she added, "If any of you have concerns or questions, my door is always open. We're in this together." That evening, Emily sat alone in her office, watching the sunset over the city skyline. Her phone buzzed continuously, messages of support from investors, industry leaders, and even former colleagues. One message caught her attention. It was from her mother. "Mom, did it have to end this way? He's still your brother." Emily sighed, running a hand through her hair. She loved her mother dearly, but some things couldn't be undone. Betrayal left scars, and not all wounds could heal. "Emily, he made his choice. I made mine." She placed the phone down and leaned back in her chair. The weight of the day pressed on her, but beneath the exhaustion was a quiet satisfaction. She had protected what mattered most, not just her company, but the people who depended on it. As she traced the faint scar on her side, a thought crossed her mind. Strength wasn't just about standing tall in the face of adversity. It was about rising above it, about proving that kindness and loyalty could coexist with power and resilience. The journey wasn't over. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to overcome. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of peace. The days following Marcus and Sarah's departure were a whirlwind of activity. Emily knew that she couldn't afford to relax just yet. While she had won this battle, trust within the company had been shaken. It was her responsibility to restore confidence, not just in her leadership, but in Meditech's future. The first step was reorganizing the leadership team. Emily invited key executives to a private strategy session. Sitting around the conference table were the company's brightest minds, people who had been with her since the early days, as well as newer hires who had proven their loyalty and competence. "I won't sugarcoat it," Emily began, her tone serious. "The last few weeks have been difficult for all of us. Some of you may feel uncertain about where we're headed. That's why I wanted us to meet today, not just to talk about the future, but to shape it together." Heads nodded around the room, and Emily continued. "We've always been at the forefront of healthcare technology, but it's time to take things to the next level. We're expanding internationally, and we're launching new products that will transform patient care. But none of this is possible without a united team." Her eyes met those of David, the head of product development, who had worked closely with Marcus during his brief tenure. "David, I know you were caught in the middle of this mess. I want you to know that I trust you. What happened wasn't your fault, and I value your expertise. Are you with us?" David looked relieved. 100%, Emily, thank you." Emily smiled, then turned to the others. "I want each of you to think about what we can do to improve, not just our products, but our culture. How can we make Meditech a place where everyone feels valued and secure? Let's work on this together." With the leadership team aligned, Emily shifted her focus to Meditech's expansion plans. Over the years, their software had gained traction in the US, but Emily had always dreamed of taking it global. Now was the perfect time. She scheduled meetings with potential partners in Europe and Asia, determined to establish Meditech as a global leader in healthcare innovation. One of the first stops was London, where Emily met with executives from the National Health Service, NHS. The meeting was intense. The NHS team was skeptical of Meditech's ability to adapt its software to the specific needs of the UK healthcare system. But Emily was prepared. She had brought along a team of developers who demonstrated how quickly the software could be customized for local regulations and workflows. By the end of the meeting, the NHS executives were impressed. "We'll need time to review everything," their lead negotiator said. "But I must admit, your technology is impressive, and so is your leadership." Emily smiled. "Thank you. We'll be here to support you every step of the way." Late one night, after returning from another successful business trip, Emily found herself sitting in her living room, a glass of wine in hand. The house was quiet, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She thought about Marcus and Sarah. Despite everything, a part of her still wished things had turned out differently. She didn't regret standing up for herself, but she couldn't help but feel the weight of what had been lost. Family bonds, once strong, now broken. Her phone buzzed. It was another email from Marcus. She hadn't replied to his previous messages, but this one caught her attention. "Marcus, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly. I let greed blind me. I hope one day we can talk." Emily stared at the screen for a long moment. She wasn't ready to forgive him, not yet. Maybe not ever. But she also knew that holding on to anger wouldn't help her heal. She closed the email without replying, then opened a blank document on her laptop. Writing had always been her way of processing emotions, and tonight she needed that release. She began typing. Leadership isn't about power. It's about trust. It's about knowing when to fight and when to let go. It's about standing tall, even when those closest to you try to tear you down. And most importantly, it's about resilience, the quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. A year after the attempted takeover, Meditech had not only survived but thrived. The international expansion was a resounding success. Partnerships with major healthcare providers across Europe and Asia solidified the company's reputation as a global leader in healthcare technology. Emily's vision for the future was unfolding exactly as she had hoped. Their latest product, a real-time patient monitoring system integrated with AI diagnostics, was receiving widespread acclaim for its ability to improve patient outcomes. At the annual Healthcare Technology Conference in New York, Emily stood at the podium, ready to deliver the keynote speech. She scanned the packed hall, noting familiar faces from competing firms, investors, and healthcare leaders. This moment was more than just a speech. It was a statement of Meditech's enduring strength and innovation. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady and confident. "A year ago, I stood at a crossroads. Betrayal and uncertainty loomed over my company. But adversity, I've learned, isn't an end. It's an opportunity to rise stronger. Today, Meditech stands taller than ever because we didn't let fear define us. We chose resilience, we chose innovation, and we chose each other." The applause was thunderous. Emily smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. This was the success she had fought for, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in her vision. Several months later, Emily received an unexpected visitor. Her mother arrived at her office, carrying a worn leather photo album. "I thought you might want to look through these," her mother said softly, placing the album on Emily's desk. Flipping through the pages, Emily saw pictures of her childhood, birthdays, family vacations, and holidays spent together. Her mother pointed to a photo of young Emily and Marcus playing in the backyard. "You two were inseparable back then. I know things have changed, but I still hope you'll find a way to talk." Emily sighed, closing the album. "Mom, he tried to take everything from me. I don't know if I can ever trust him again." "I'm not asking you to forget," her mother said gently, "but forgiveness isn't about him. It's about freeing yourself. You've built an incredible life, Emily. Don't let old wounds keep you from finding peace." That night, Emily sat by her window, thinking about her mother's words. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting the pain, but maybe it could mean letting go of the bitterness. She wasn't ready to rebuild a relationship with Marcus, but perhaps she could start by releasing the anger she had carried for so long. She picked up her phone and sent a short message to Marcus. "I received your emails. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate your apology. Take care." It wasn't much, but it was a step. A small bridge over the chasm that betrayal had created. As time passed, Emily continued to lead Meditech with unwavering determination. The company flourished, expanding into new markets and developing groundbreaking technologies. But Emily had also learned an important lesson. Success wasn't just about work, it was about balance. She started taking time for herself, traveling and reconnecting with friends she had lost touch with during the intense years of building her business. She discovered a love for hiking and spent weekends exploring nearby trails. Each step reminded her of the journey she had taken, how far she had come and how much she had grown. Late one evening, she found herself reflecting on the past year. The scar on her side was barely visible now, but it remained a symbol of both sacrifice and strength. She had given a part of herself to save a life, and in return, she had discovered just how resilient she truly was. In the quiet of her home office, Emily opened a journal and wrote, "True strength isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It's the quiet, steady resolve to keep moving forward, even when the world tries to push you down. And sometimes the greatest victories are the ones no one sees. The battles fought in silence, the courage to forgive, and the grace to rise above."